All right, Jeff, thank you. Well, your kids probably have an electronic device or two, maybe more than that, on their Christmas wish list this year. But how can parents make sure all that screen time doesn't get out of hand? We're joined this morning by Jeff Reiland, behavioral health therapist with Gunderson Health System, to talk about how we can find some balance. So good morning. Thank you for being with us this morning. So yeah, a lot of kids will get electronics this holiday season, whether it's iPads, phones, video games, who knows what else they're asking for, right? How can parents get a handle on all of this overwhelming screen time?
Very carefully. Now, I think that it's really being proactive in trying to think about what it is we want our family life to look like before we give those gifts to our children.
Okay. So do you recommend maybe some kind of media plan before the electronics are gifted, or how can parents go about that?
I think a lot of parents make it up as they go. They find out, oh my gosh, these things are really interesting to our kids. They can't think of anything else that's more exciting. And so I think it's helpful as they notice how their children kind of gravitate toward those devices, that they perhaps put some other things in place. Like, before we have those devices, maybe we can do other things as a family. So having a plan, what are the other things that our family values? What are the things that we like to do, or that we used to do before these devices became so important to our kids?
Okay. And we know a lot of parents can sometimes rely on these devices, you know, whether it's to entertain the kids, especially during these long winter breaks. Maybe you want to keep them occupied at a holiday dinner. So when does screen time go from being a helpful tool to an unhealthy habit? And are there any signs to look out for?
Absolutely. When your children start saying, I'm bored, there's nothing to do, and you're thinking, gosh, when I was a kid, we didn't go out and feed the horses with hay. I mean, we did things before the advent of devices.
Right.
So we know there are things to do. There's just nothing that's quite as exciting, not quite as much of a dopamine kick. And so I think it's important to have a plan when we have those events. What are the things our kids can do? Craft projects, board games, card games, puzzles, adventures outside or inside, things that they can do. Just have a plan when you have those activities coming up, so that your kids aren't just saying, I'm bored, there's nothing to do.
And any other signs, you know, easy signs parents could tell maybe it's time to take a break from the electronics?
When kids start getting more irritable, when they want to live on them, when the first thing they ask for, the last thing they part with is a device. I mean, we're looking at a pediatric guideline of just a couple hours at the most per day for recreational electronic media. Not a lot. And in all the other things kids can do, need to take up the rest of that time, especially during the holidays.
And any strategies or tips parents can keep in mind to get ahead of excessive screen time before those bad habits start to form?
Well, I think starting out and having those clear guidelines is a good step, and it's easier to start early and maybe use screen time. I like to think of it as a dessert. It's something you do after you've done the work of childhood of the day. Played outside, played with friends, been nice, done your chores, done all the work of the day. Then we can have a little screen time.
Okay, good tip there. And before we go, you have a podcast, a parenting podcast, where you talk about all of this. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, our podcast just dropped in December. We have 29 episodes up, many more to come.
Okay.
And we're just giving tips for parents of young children or school-aged children on how to make their job parenting a little bit easier by having more tools for their toolbox.
All right, awesome. Well, thank you so much for being with us this morning, Jeff.
And you can reach that podcast. It's called Parenting Tips, Gunderson Parenting Tips, on YouTube or Spotify.
Okay, awesome. Thanks so much.
Thank you.